Hey everybody, let us listen to a very popular fairy tale about Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. Once upon a time, there lived a king with his queen. They were both wonderful people. The queen's greatest wish was to have a daughter with skin as white as snow, lips as red as blood, and hair as black as ebony. This wish soon came true. She gave birth to a daughter. The queen named her Snow White. Unfortunately, the queen fell sick and passed away. The king married another lady, but soon he died as well. The new queen was very beautiful. She was also vain and proud. She had a magic mirror that could speak to her. Every morning she would ask the mirror, "Mirror, mirror on the wall, who is the fairest of all?" The mirror always replied, "You are, your majesty." The queen was thrilled to hear that. This continued for many years until Snow White grew up. One day, when the queen, as usual, asked the mirror, "Mirror, mirror on the wall, who is the fairest of all?" The mirror replied, "Your Majesty, you are still lovely, but Snow White is the fairest of all." The queen boiled with rage. She immediately decided to kill Snow White. She called a huntsman. "Take Snow White to the forest and kill her." "Of course, your majesty," said the huntsman. The huntsman took Snow White to the forest, but he was a good person. He looked at the innocent girl and did not have the heart to kill her. Instead, he said, "Please run away from here, princess. Do not come back, or the queen will try to kill you again." Saying so, the huntsman returned to the queen and told her Snow White was dead. In the forest, Snow White was all alone and frightened. She started walking and eventually came to a cottage. She knocked on the door, but no one answered. Slowly she opened the door and went into the cottage. The cottage was small and neat. She saw a table with 7 small chairs. On the table there were cakes, bread, and fruits. Hungry, she immediately started eating the food. In the corner of the room were 7 tiny beds. Tired, she went to sleep on one of the beds. The cottage was home to 7 dwarfs. They worked in a nearby mine, digging gold and diamonds. When they came back home, they were shocked. All their food was eaten and a stranger was lying on a bed. Snow White woke up, hearing all the noise. She sweetly introduced herself to the dwarfs. "Hello, my name is Snow White." The dwarfs liked Snow White and so they allowed her to live in the cottage. Snow White enjoyed her time with the dwarfs. She helped the dwarfs with their household work. She spent the rest of her time walking in the woods and playing with the animals. She even met a prince during one of her trips. Both Snow White and the prince became very good friends. A few days later, the evil queen decided to check the magic mirror. "Mirror, mirror on the wall, who is the fairest of all?" The mirror replied, "Your Majesty, you are still lovely, but Snow White, living in the forest among the dwarfs, is the fairest of all." The queen got very angry. She disguised herself as an old apple seller. She took an apple and dipped it in poison. She waited until the dwarfs left the cottage and knocked on the door. Snow White carefully opened the window. "Apple for sale," said the old woman. "Why don't you buy the shiny, delicious looking apple?" Snow White was very tempted. She took a bite. The minute she ate the apple, she fell down as if she were dead. The old woman immediately left, happy Snow White was dead at last. When the queen asked the magic mirror, "Mirror, mirror on the wall, who is the fairest of all?" The magic mirror replied, "Your Majesty, you are the fairest of all." The queen was finally happy. Back in the forest, the dwarfs were shocked to see Snow White lifeless. They felt very sad. They put Snow White in a glass casket and placed it in the forest. One day, the prince was riding in the forest and he came across Snow White in the casket. He was heartbroken. When he took her in his arms, the piece of apple lodged in Snow White's throat came out. Snow White woke up. The dwarfs rejoiced to see Snow White alive. The next time the queen asked the magic mirror, "Mirror, mirror on the wall, who is the fairest of all?" The mirror replied, "Your Majesty, Snow White is the fairest of all." The queen went mad with anger. She broke the mirror and ran away, never to be heard of ever again. Meanwhile, the prince and Snow White fell in love with each other and got married, and they lived happily ever after.